Hello everyone and welcome to this new video where we will very basically address self-defense in the field of survival. Today we are going to talk about handling the stick. Seemingly harmless, it can prove to be formidable in expert hands. It is easy to obtain, it is effective, free, the learning is simple, it is the basis for approaching other weapons. It has often been considered the best contact weapon. It will never be banned, its access will remain free. Finally, getting used to handling the stick will significantly increase your chances of survival in unstable areas or in high crime areas. The stick is particularly useful for protecting against knife attacks or similar bladed weapons, which are statistically the most common. In this video, we will look at three main types of sticks, actually three classic dimensions of different sticks. How can you develop your dexterity with the different sticks? The warm-ups before training, the different stick attacks, the different blocks with a stick against stick attacks, the different vital points that will interest us in this activity. And muscle strengthening, essential in order to increase your stick striking power. I'm going to present you with easily achievable techniques. In most cases, a few months of training will be enough to give you a significant comparative advantage. This is important during a confrontation, whether it's against an individual larger than you, multiple opponents, or even an opponent with a contact weapon. So, I'm going to present an overview of the simplest techniques so that you can make them your own, integrate them, and they can be easily implemented. Regardless of the situation, don't forget that in real combat, motor, cognitive, and perceptual abilities are greatly reduced. It is generally said that we are at 20 or 30% of our maximum potential under these conditions. As Dominique Valera once told me, it's the tens of thousands of repetitions that will make it so that the day you need it, you'll make a perfect move, regardless of your stress level. The techniques that are visually the most impressive are often ineffective when it comes to real fights. The purpose of the video is indeed to present proven techniques and to train in this sense. As usual, in survival we aim for economy of means, energy expenditure, and simplicity. Before we start, I want to tell you that these methods are extremely effective and even dangerous. And that blows with a stick, particularly to vital points, leave no chance of survival to an opponent, whoever they may be. The speed, the leverage, the small contact surface at impact that a properly handled stick provides greatly multiply the fighter's striking power. The techniques I'm going to present to you today are, of course, only to be used in cases of extreme necessity, in survival situations. If by chance the situation presents itself to you, defend yourself responsibly and consciously. For our activity, it is preferable to know the different techniques associated with different lengths of stick. Because in a real situation, we don't always have the luxury of choosing a particular stick. In reality, we might take whatever we have at hand that can resemble a stick. Let's start now with the average stick, which can be called a combat stick, the Joe the Malajou. It's generally a stick that revolves around 140 MCHT for 2.05 centimeters in diameter. It's the walker's and hiker's stick. Its harmless appearance is a big advantage and makes it the preferred stick for survival. We're going to see the basic techniques with this French school combat stick, federal stick, joint city stick, etc. These are approach techniques to the activity that allow us to start with interesting gestures and that will allow us to loosen up the body. A general rule in stick fighting is that we will always strike to optimize the striking power. We will always strike with the end of the stick. You will have much more significant damage, or let's say at most, with the 20 cm at the end of the stick. With the average stick, we will find the sports combat guards. So that's the whole point. You will have your feet about at the level of your shoulders, so not too far apart, a slight flex on the knees. To be flexible, therefore, you always have to be careful to have very, very flexible hips. And the guard will be done in this way with the back arm for a right-handed person and the front arm forward for a left-handed person. Obviously, we have something different. It's the opposite, symmetrically. As far as holding the stick is concerned, we're going to put the back hand a few fingers, 2 or 3 fingers from the end of the stick, and we're going to hold it very firmly. Don't put it at the end because we could potentially lose the stick quite easily. So maximum 1 full hand, minimum 2 or 3 fingers. If you want to optimize the striking distance, you put it at 2 or 3 fingers. You'll go a little further, especially if you play a little with your hips. So let's now tackle the basic strokes with the medium stick. So the classic strokes in combat stick. So from a normal guard start, you have the outer lateral. And you have the lateral on the other side, crossed lateral, which usually happens during a guard change, so that the movement is more fluid, or on a withdrawal. So here you have outside lateral, crossed lateral, conversely. For a left-hander, of course, outside lateral, crossed lateral, so crossed lateral on a withdrawal, outside lateral on a normal guard. So we are in normal guard position, outside lateral guard, crossed lateral. So we see this at the level of impact. So you are on a normal guard, always lateral outside, crossed lateral, crossed outside. Let's now look at a blow that can be interesting in somewhat crowded places, in a corridor or in a forest, between 2 trees, which will typically be a blow with the medium stick. It's the broken. So the broken, a very big classic, which is also found in combat cane, a little bit different, but almost in the same way. So the broken, you have this movement here. So you are here and there. So it allows, you see, not to be bothered by obstacles that would be on the right or left. So on the broken, we have a hit, obviously, that will strike on the head, on the skull of the opponent. So we are going to stay still in the great classics of the medium stick, so combat stick. We will have the sliding, pricked, sliding. So pricked, sliding. There you go. You have a pricked, sliding. These are blows that are very dangerous in relation to the vital points at the level of the axis. So you have the pricked. You can also have the pricked slides in return. So we look at this slide, pricked. We always start with our classic combat sport guard. So slide there. So these are quite vicious blows in reality that we don't see very, very well coming. And slide, turn to loosen up and to tame the stick a little bit, to become one with the stick, as they say. It's interesting to work a little bit on the guard changes. So with the foot changes, as for the parries, we will use the Asian school parries, which are the most effective. So for all the blows that come to the head from above, you have these parries there. So being careful to spread the fingers. Because in the reality of combat, in demonstration, you see people who do like this, obviously, at more or less slowed down speed. If you have someone, an attacker, who comes with maximum power and gives you a blow of this type, the best thing is still to clear the fingers. You should know that a blow to the finger, a blow to the wrist, is a systematic fracture, and with a stick. So, we are here. The blows on the sides, it's the same. We're going to take that there. The blows in the median and at height, head, laterally in reality, and the blows at the leg level. You can have the stakes like this. The stakes or then the clearances. The best thing is still to be very, very careful and to rather make withdrawals. Now let's look at the short stick, the Kaliarnis Eskrima stick, which is rather used in Indonesia or the Philippines, more generally in Southeast Asia. It is about 70 centimeter long, with a diameter always of 2 to 2.5 centimeters. These techniques are simple but of formidable effectiveness. For short stick techniques in particular, physical strength and power will make the difference. In the last part, I will present some reinforcement techniques for handling the short stick. With the short stick now, we are going to focus on very simple strikes. We have the direct strikes. First, initially, you have what we call the redondo. So it's a direct strike, which will be vertical or almost vertical. And you have the same thing. You have the jab, which is a direct strike, but horizontal. So we have the redondo and the jab. The grip is always more or less the same. So redondo, D-jab. Let's now move on to the backhand. So the backhands, you had the redondo. Redondo backhand here in the jab. Jab backhand here. So it's the same thing. It's the counterpart of live blows. So it's interesting for backhands to do them with both hands. To succeed in capturing, let's say, the maximum power then. So here, a two-handed backhand redondo, two-handed backhand jab, then the backhand. To do it correctly, you should not grab the stick. You just need to relieve the wrist. So redondo, backhand redondo. In reality, I put my hand at this level, more or less. And there, you seriously increase the power of the backhand. So, for parries, we're going to use the first parry. It's the so-called umbrella parry, which will particularly interest you because you will be able to prepare your shot. In reality, you will arm your shot while protecting yourself from a possible stick hit. So you arm, you send your jab or your redondo in this case, and then you can do your combination. This is typical of Krabi Krabane from Thailand. Then we're going to keep the same parry techniques at the lateral level, maybe if it's possible. On the other hand, for the blows that would be delivered down, we absolutely need to work on dodges and withdrawals. It's absolutely not possible without putting oneself in danger of being able to parry potential blows. They would have to be really very, very poorly given, very, very poorly carried blows. So we're more on dodges. Like combat sport, boxing. Some specifics of the long stick, which is called in the Asian school the in, it is about 1.80 meters for 300 centimeters in diameter. It was initially made to fight the riders. It is unusable in crowded places or indoors. So we're going to have 2 or 3 particular strokes with these sticks, which can be interesting in combat. So you simply have the thrust, which is going to be one of the most effective. So it's going to be a very simple thrust. You can do it at several levels, obviously. Head level, of course, these are generally the most effective. So you have thrust to the left, thrust to the right, so it's the same thing. You have another shot that will be interesting that we can then work on, which is very, very surprising and which is one of the most powerful. Finally, with the long stick, it's the whip. So the whip, we don't see it coming, especially if we make a feint at the base. The whip overall, that's it. So, to give you an idea of the impact, these are blows that, at the temple, do not forgive. It's extremely powerful because you have a very significant lever arm, and moreover, we don't really see it coming. These are direct or whipped. It's a blow that, if it's accompanied by a little feint down below, will almost always get through. Here's the whip. So we play well on the elasticity of the long stick, so it is extremely powerful. Then you have a last hit, which will be a bit like the counterpart of the whip, which is the reverse that can be interesting to pass and which cannot be used with other sticks. So, typical to the long stick, the reverse. So, the reverse it is. It's the same. It's a vicious blow because you first make a feint on the bottom. For the blocks with the long stick, the beautiful one, we go back to the blocks. Asian school. So for the blows that come from above, you have this position here, always being very careful with the finger. You have these techniques laterally, and you have the stakes on the ground for the blows that come at a low level. Then you have the clearances for the blows that come from below in the genital area, for example. And obviously, you have all the interesting evasions and retreat. Let's now quickly address the vital points that will interest us. In stick, we will find the classic vital points on the line between the nasofrontal point, between the eyes and down to the base of the neck. You have a set of vital points that will cause concussions, a loss of consciousness, especially on pecking blows. At the level of the throat and Adam's palm, you will also have cartilage injuries, trachea or larynx, a loss of consciousness as well. The eyes, the eyeballs, obviously very sensitive to stakes, but also to circular blows with irreversible lesions, often retinal detachment, others quite systematic, the malar bone at this level, the cheekbones, which are also very incapacitating points, the vital points laterally. Now, so you have the temples, of course, with associated systematic head traumas and a loss of consciousness. From the top of the temporal bone, just behind the ear, to what is called the base of the rock. You have several vital points at different levels, and you will also have a loss of consciousness. A little below, you have the angle of the jaw, which will bring a systematic imbalance, not to mention fractures. A little further below, you have the carotid, the artery. The area extends over the entire lateral part of the neck. So you also have a systematic loss of balance there. Finally, we're going to look at the vital points at the dorsal level. You have the entire spine. You have a major vulnerability, especially for everything that is at the cervical level. But with the stick overall, no matter where you hit on the spine, you will cause significant damage with an almost immediate incapacity for the opponent. The other vital points that can be given to you will yield rather random and less reliable results. Before starting your sessions, warm up for about 10 minutes, start with a jog or a bit of jump rope. Continue with upper body warm-ups. After the session, don't forget to stretch. It will promote your recovery and prevent any injuries.